more by just playing games. All you gotta do is sign up for the app, clicking an eligible game to play, and link it to your account. Then you can just play games and go through milestones you achieve, and then you can redeem your game time for things like Thanks again to Snacksy for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to it. Despite all of this, Bungie could have made a blank slate and made a Destiny 3, took all that feedback and just made something amazing. Instead, we have Marathon. As you obviously know, Marathon just had its server slam test go live, which is a free public beta where you get to try Marathon free of charge, of course, and then engage with its many systems. So I, like many, did just that. I downloaded the beta, jumped in on stream so that my thoughts could be heard unfiltered, and I walked away after playing Marathon with one critical thought in my brain that I couldn't shake. And that was that this might be the death of Bungie, and no, I'm not kidding. Look, I don't want to be negative here, but the reality is that Marathon was kind of Bungie's last chance at survival before Sony begins gutting the entire studio with a bloody hatchet. You see, like I said, Destiny was great when it first came out. For me anyways, it hit its peak in the Forsaken era. And Final Shape was also good. Not amazing, but pretty good. And after that, I just kinda never went back. I put Destiny behind me like many others did too. And all I've seen about Bungie since Final Shape is Destiny fans being disappointed by Edge of Fate, that Star Wars expansion that came and went, and that new seasonal structure which was not well received either. The answer to any claims was always, don't worry guys, Bungie is gonna make the comeback we all need because they're putting it all into Marathon. It's gonna be amazing. And I have to say guys, after playing it myself, Marathon kind of doesn't even really need to exist at all if I'm being honest. Alright, so how was it of course? Well, if I had to rate Marathon on the low end, I would give it maybe a 5 out of 10. Average gamer slop, I guess. On the high end, it hits about maybe a 6 at best. I find the NPCs having compelling looks to them at least. The actual look of the art direction is interesting to me somewhat, but the world itself, it feels like I'm in some weird Roblox sanitized jungle gym or something. It doesn't feel like a world where a human colony apparently existed at any moment, which is by the way what you're rating. There's no real signs that like humans really live there where you're excavating. It's just instead boring office buildings and oil tanker looking environments everywhere. I think it would have been far more interesting if the world was an alien planet instead of an abandoned human colony that's on an alien planet, if that makes sense. Like if there were alien artifacts to discover, mines to plunder, actual things to actually want to excavate would be a far more compelling point. Like why would multiple factions in space be sending down these robots to excavate random bits of industry metal or components that humans made? Couldn't they just easily create those things themselves in the factories they probably already have off-planet? Like, nothing you collect in the game, for me anyway, so far, feels like something that I cared about collecting in the first place. Then there's the UI. I don't even know, man. It's a complete mess. I just have to be honest with you. This falls into that same sin of being a menu simulator where you want to launch the game proper. There's just way too many sub-menus. Too many things to click on to make the things that you want to happen. There's no social zone either, which is very bizarre. Like, you would think they would have that so you can run around and see other people in their shells with their charms and their skins and whatever, which are the characters you play in the game, by the way. But instead, it's all just launched from a menu. You don't even see your shells entering the orbit. The game just starts, and then you're just there somehow, inexplicably, and then the game just starts. Okay, at least some positives, alright? I will say the gunplay feels good. I mean, it has to be, because it's literally just the Destiny systems and mechanics placed in another game. So yes, at least shooting things feels good. The feedback of shooting things is great, but it leads to another big problem, which is, where the hell are all the enemies in this game? Like, the game is called Marathon, because all you really do is run around wondering when the game starts to get good, because there's really nothing to shoot at most of the time. It reminds me, and let me explain, but Marathon actually kind of reminds me of High Guard in the worst ways possible. High Guard also has very little shooting until the sword phase starts proper, and Marathon feels a lot like this too. In every match that I played a Marathon, I think only one match maybe I shot more than 10 PvE enemies, but every other match alongside the randoms that I was playing with, we ran into maybe 3 or 4 PvE enemies at best an entire match. which means for the most part, you're kind of just running around looking at things, checking if there's any items anywhere. But weirdly, so much of this game's environment has very little to interact with. Office buildings with papers on tables and phones just left abandoned with nothing interesting to interact with. And when there is something to open, half the time it's something boring. Every item has like a word salad of explanation for what it does or what it means, which is actually bad because in this sort of game, you kind of need to keep moving. You need the description of its items to be short and sweet. Like, what does this item do? Let me know so I know to pick it up or not, because can you be quick? Because I could be shot in the face while reading these novels of explanations that the developers left on every single item in the game. Then there's the ammo, which is kind of scarce, which is weird considering this is a game where you want to be shooting things, apparently, at least I think so. And finding ammo is also weirdly not very convenient either, and the quests so far are pretty bog standard stuff that you've seen a dozen times before. Kill some PvE enemies, turn on that relay, yet the game doesn't really do a good job of telling you where any relay is or how exactly it is to find the thing that you're looking for because, again, the UI and just everything in this game is so confusing. I had a quest where I had to turn on a relay, and it turns out after like 3 missions that I figured out, oh, the mission doesn't want me to spawn on the map that I am currently spawning on, but they want me to go play in another one. If that's the case, why not indicate that better? I'm as much at war with this game's UI as I am with the many enemies in the game too. Like, nothing feels like it was thought through. It's instead like a massive vomit of just neon colors and exposition that I have honestly no time to read because my teammates have already left the building and me defenseless, and I don't want my back exposed if an enemy shows up and kills me. You also die very quickly in this game too, for both the PvE and the PvP enemies alike. And this is where the powers come into mind, I guess, and each shell has their abilities, but honestly, the majority of them don't feel interesting to use because the game doesn't present any scenarios where they feel like they should be utilized as often as they should. I mostly use the shield guy named Destroyer because at the very least, the shield you have is something that makes sense in this game. It blocks damage, duh, I know. And the same shell super is basically a rocket system, which makes sense, I guess, to just blast enemies away. But again, most of the time, it just doesn't feel usable because there's barely any enemies to find in the game already. Most matches went kind of like this, alright? You find maybe 2 PvE enemies, you shoot them, and then either you're found by an enemy team and immediately wiped out because you die so quickly, or you're the ones finding another team that doesn't see you and then you wipe them out fast the same way. It just feels like there's no time to react to anything, and one time I was even spawned near poisonous flowers or something as I began a game. With the game giving me also, by the way, no knowledge that such concepts even existed in the game before this. So I was walking and then boom, I'm poisoned. I literally just started the match and now I'm dying. Okay, thanks, I guess. And then there's the healing UI. It's at least fine, I guess. It's like down on the D-pad for healing. And then you can swap the items with your analog stick from like the shield to the health or status effects. But my god, dude, another problem again. Because even then, it's just a lot of busy work. There's too much stuff to keep track of here. Like, you need to have items equipped to heal your health bar, but you also need shield regens. Okay, that's fine, I guess. But then you also need to waste space on specific ailment items that you also need to waste space for ammo as well too. And your inventory is already small as is, so you're basically wasting most of your inventory space on these essentials before you even begin the game, which then leaves very little room to actually collect the things in the world, which is, you know, kind of the point of the game. It just, I don't know, it all feels at odds with itself. Healing items, status effect items, like that should just be the same thing for simplicity. If I get poisoned or damaged, that same item should just heal both, and if I want to waste it, that's my decision, because that's what healing means in a game like this. But those are the intricacies I hear some people say, but no, in a game like this, you need the systems to get yourself back into the fight to be simple to do. Otherwise, it just leads to too much wasted inventory space and too much busy work, which then distracts you from engaging with what the game wants you to engage with in the first place, which is, oh, I don't know, playing the damn game. The game also also commits another cardinal sin that live service games need to stop doing, which is having way too much dialogue. Like when you're back at base and you're talking to Oni, which is basically like this NPC in your ear, I guess. It's kind of like your ghost from Destiny if you want a comparison. Anyways, Oni just vomits paragraph after paragraph of exposition at you to explain what something is, who these people are, what's going on, which would be fine if this wasn't in a multiplayer game. You see, these sorts of games don't need so much exposition because the majority of players will honestly just skip it out of impatience because they're there to play the game, not stare at a static screen while some NPC speaks with nothing happening. If you play a single player game, I guess it's not as bad, but even then, I could feel myself going, oh my god, dude. Bungie? They haven't learned anything from Destiny when they made this, did they? Like, all the same problems persist. Lack of understanding what players want, drip-fed story, way too many menus and busy work, and honestly, the more I played Marathon, it just didn't feel unique at all to me. Then there's the actual worlds you explore, as in like the zones. Like, that's what they kind of feel like. They feel like Destiny zones, if you will. If you haven't played Destiny, basically you can load into the various planets and whatnot, and then they have these big zones that you can explore. Not really open world, but like open-ended, I guess. Then there's like sub-quests, there's items to collect around, enemies to shoot, and you can drive around and, discover things. Marathon's game world, it feels like one of Bungie's zones in Destiny, but if you like reduce the enemy density by like 90% and replaced most of the items found with weird components or stuff like that, I guess, that again have massive paragraphs on them too. The entire time I played Marathon, I just thought to myself, if Bungie really wanted this to be something, Marathon's entire design should have just been a dedicated game mode in a potential Destiny 3 or Destiny 2 instead. I mean, you already have PvP maps and zones made in Destiny 2. You have plenty of levels designed from previous expansions and whatnot. You could have easily added the same extraction shooter elements to Destiny and saved yourselves millions of dollars in development and dev time as well. It would make sense to enter, let's say, a hostile Venus or Mars map in Destiny, right? To find items needed to create the new exotic weapon that season has. Or just find items needed for weapon crafting or mods for your armor, whatever, something else, right? Like, here's an idea. You could have even taken like the Traveler, which in the final shape, if you don't know, you actually travel inside of the Traveler. And then you discovered in that expansion that the Traveler's like insides can create pretty much any physical realm of space based on the memories of those inside it. So that's a really good way to do this, but you could have easily taken the Traveler and said the Traveler is making these bizarro map variations, if you will, where this version inside of it that's Mars is now hostile to you, as in PvPvE or Venus or Earth or the Taken King ship, like whatever it is, right? It could work. And then you could just explain this all away as these are real worlds inside of the Traveler, and its light is making it to guide you and test you and make you stronger by pitting you against the will of other guardians for the threats to come, right? You would already have the enemy types available to you from various factions as well. Cabal, Vex, Fallen, whatever. You could have easily made the mode even a roguelike if you wanted, where you're stripped of all your armor and guns and forced to survive through randomly generated levels inside the Traveler to test your mettle and then reap the rewards. But instead, Bungie kind of just went, nah, we're good. We know Destiny is our crown jewel and it's dying, by the way, and it needs content, but we're just gonna go make Roblox in space with neon colors instead. And all you shoot pretty much are lumbering robot enemies that kind of just look like cyborg versions of Cabal from Destiny, I guess. Anyways, I don't know, man. It just kind of all makes you wonder, what was the point of any of this? There's nothing unique here to do that you couldn't already do in Destiny. The rewards are basically normal things you've seen 100 times. Look, you got a gun that's green tiered instead of gray. Isn't that cool? You mean like Destiny, kind of? That game you guys already have an install base with, which people want more content with, but you're not making it fast enough or good enough with? But no, here you just have it's like a small selection of new weapons, which made no sense to me because you could have taken the 100 of gun models you guys already had in Destiny and filled it with those, and this would have been like the same but better. Like, they could have made the extraction mode some sort of ritual of even like the Iron Lords in Destiny as well, where maybe the Iron Lords are allowing guardians to re-enter the wilds of their domain and you fight for the precious materials left behind from the pre-collapse era. Or here's another great idea that they could have done. They could have made it so that the Vanguard found the planet that like the Witness was from, but since the Witness was dead, obviously, because you kill him in the final shape and its people along with it, their civilization is now laid barren and vacant for excavating. Like, there's nobody on that planet anymore. But then that would be be cool, right? Like, what would a civilization like the Witnesses people have created and left behind on their planet when they came to fight the Traveler? They're aliens, obviously, sure. They were abandoned by the Traveler. They almost annihilated the entire universe. So what was left in their society when they came to you guys? Like, that would have been a great idea to make that into a multi-tier zone map, drop the Guardians in there with new threats that attack and hunt you down, and other players could hunt each other for the relics of that lost alien civilization and fight for the various factions in Destiny's universe. But no, instead you're just some neon-colored shell person running through office buildings collecting ammo and pieces of metal that humans made? Remind me again why this game exists in the first place, because everything Marathon does is worse than what already exists in Destiny. Like, the abilities of these shells, they just feel like off-brand Guardian abilities, pulling up a shield to run at enemies. Like, that's a Titan if I ever saw one. The Vandal, for example, which is a class all about movement and shooting fast projectiles, like, come on, that's just a hunter. Triage is a shell that allows you to heal your allies and use EMPs to break down enemy shields, so a Warlock is basically what that is as well. You see what I mean? It's like they took what they already had in Destiny and just went, what if we just did Destiny but worse? I won't lie, when I'm actually shooting PvE enemies, I'm at least having some kind of fun because, the shooting feels good, but it's just too little. 80% of the match, I'm just running around. Even when you call for evac to leave the level, there's no indicator that I can tell anyways that actually tells you how far along the evac is from completion. You kind of just stand there and then suddenly the game goes, okay, it's ready. Why not make the circle around you load from bottom to top in colors so you know how far it is before it's ready? Like, you literally already did that in Destiny when you capture zones. Like, what are we doing? But no, just stand there awkwardly. Hopefully nobody shoots you, by the way. Like, it just feels bizarre. Like, I like the aesthetic of some of the characters. I like how the shells bleed blue blood when they crawl away harmed. It's a nice looking thing. I like the environment's colors at times, maybe. But overall, I'm just kind of left wondering what was the point of any of this. Like, I get it, right? It's because Sony wants their live service slot, but for the love of God, it's just not working, man. I hate to be negative here, but I actually think this might be the end of Bungie if this ends up flopping. Okay, so in case you don't know, by the way, Marathon did hit a peak of around 145,000 players during the release of this public beta. But as seen here, the game, as this video anyways, has now dropped to about 60,000 concurrent players already, which, I mean, I'll just say it. This makes me think it's pulling a high guard already. We literally just saw this with High Guard 2, didn't we? Like, now, don't get me wrong, all right? I do think that Marathon will do better than High Guard, which I know isn't saying much, but still, at the very least, Bungie does have a dedicated fan base that will still give them a shot, but all I'm seeing online is people saying that Marathon is bad, they refunded their pre-orders and more, as one user said here, as you can see. Uninstalled Marathon after 3 games. This is what they put their energy into. I've played Destiny for 12 years weekly. To suspend that for this is insane. And I mean, I kind of agree with it. I don't see how this was supposed to be the thing to prioritize at all. Then you have Nero Cinema, that's a Call of Duty YouTuber, who chimed in as well, where he said this: I had zero expectations going into Marathon and somehow I still feel let down. Game is hot garbage. Worst menus and UI I think I've ever seen. Gunplay is good, yeah, because nothing has recoil and is a laser beam. Looting is convoluted. Hold E for everything. See maybe 1 or 2 other squads per match. Art style is subjective, but it looks like straight Roblox. I could keep reading his thoughts if you want, but like, you get the point. He doesn't like the game. You have some other content creators that also got emailed by Bungie to be paid to actually stream Marathon, as one guy shows here, and Bungie was literally, and I'm not kidding, willing to pay this guy a whole $11 for a dedicated stream. $11. Like, wow, what an opportunity. Really throwing that budget around there, Bungie. Here's another user who also turned on Marathon. Found out the game wanted to install invasive anti-cheat software. They said no, and they deleted the game. But the biggest yikes for me is just how many people are saying that they're just canceling their pre-orders already. Even Paul Tassi, who, if you don't know, he's like one of Bungie's biggest defenders. He dick rides them all the time. But anyway, he protects them, right, all the time whenever they make stupid decisions, which is very often these days, by the way. He even admits, as you can see here from Forbes, he can't even defend Marathon himself anymore either. He thinks, as you can see there, that the game hasn't clicked for him and the game is simply not pulling him in, which is pretty much 9/11 for Bungie developers, because again, this guy has ran so much positive PR for them. Like, it's insane over the years, dude. It's absolutely insane how much this guy's an apologist like you wouldn't believe for Bungie. So the fact that Paul is also stating in full-blown paragraphs how he thinks the time to kill is very low, the need to bring in so many consumables for each type of damage you can take is stupid, which I literally brought up earlier in this video, by the way. It is dumb. I do agree. You guys don't understand, okay, how bad this looks for Marathon. Like, Paul Tassi not liking this game, it's like the equivalent of a Taylor Swift fan account denouncing their favorite singer and calling her music trash. Paul even admits here that he thinks the entire extraction shooter genre is pretty pointless and he hates how you can just waste hours of your time losing all your progress because of one bad run, and he thinks that it's not very fun, which, well, I'm actually agreeing with Paul here, I gotta admit. It's no wonder why recently, in case you didn't know this, but Arc Raiders actually removed their PvP feats from their game. And this was apparently to decentivize people from shooting each other and then just like pushing the game instead to be more of like a PvE game, I guess. Probably because, Arc Raiders is realizing that the vast majority of their player base, which is casuals obviously, don't really like the idea of losing everything they have to just die and then have nothing to show for it. And Marathon's just kind of doing more of the same too. Like, I got a green SMG from a quest that I did, and then a game or two later, I died to someone and I lost that green SMG. Remind me again why I'm even playing this game in the first place then. If you ask me, extraction shooters can let your weapons drop so people can still take them, but you shouldn't lose the weapons that you love either. Maybe that goes against the concept, but it doesn't make these sorts of games feel any better either way to me. As this user also pointed out, the defense being ran from Marathon is very similar to High Guard, and anyone who praises Marathon can't tell you why they are doing it. They are just doing it because they think they have to defend it for some reason. Look, I just think we need to let these sorts of games die for the most part. Sure, it can work, I guess, to a degree, but the amount of failure in this space, live service, I mean, it needs to be stamped out entirely. If Marathon was a PvE game where you ran around with friends shooting PvE enemies, collecting things, doing quests, the game would likely be far more warmly received like Helldivers was. But the reality is that the inclusion of baked-in PvP is going to make anyone who isn't a streamer or hardcore PvPer themselves leave the game eventually or just not try it out at all, because it's just not fun for most people. It's a big reason why I haven't played Arc Raiders in a minute. I just frankly have no interest in PvP anymore. Call me an unk or I'm washed, I don't care. The truth is, I want to have fun when I play my games. I don't really care about sweating against people. If you want that sort of thing, just make the PvP side of the equation into its own dedicated mode. So people that want that sort of thing can sign in and do that if they want. But the thing with Marathon is they can't have too many PvE enemies on screen because it would be imbalance of the presence of other potential enemy teams shooting you. It would feel overwhelming. It goes against the entire design philosophy. I get that. Which is why right now you don't have many enemies at all to shoot at then, and I know Bungie has said they're listening to feedback, but let's be real. The sad reality is that this game is like a week away or so from officially releasing. Any feedback to say fixing the UI or the core gameplay loop will likely take months to fix. This is Bungie we're talking about. They didn't add anything to Crucible for years, dude. They take forever to do anything. And with the game officially launching soon, this means they're coming out of the gate and missing their shot almost immediately. Like, look, I don't hate Marathon. I don't want the game to fail or anything like that. I more so just kind of feel neutral to it all. It's mostly that once I left the game, I felt the same way I did with High Guard when I played it. I just don't care about these sorts of games. I don't want to play them because the design structure of what they entail is not what I look for in video games. And it's becoming clear that a lot of people too are thinking the exact same thing. I still do think that like Marathon could be a hit on release maybe, but with the dwindling player numbers already on a free public beta no less, it's giving that High Guard feel all over again. Because remember, Marathon is not free to play. When it releases, it's $40 American, 50 Canadian. You have to pay money to play this thing if you want to jump in. And I think with the reception to how fast they lost public players on their free option, by the way, it tells me that Marathon is likely unfortunately cooked unless Bungie can fix it fast. Maybe the release will go fine, I don't know. I'm not here salivating at my lips hoping for its failure either way. All I know is what I played was mediocre, everything felt at odds with everything else, and the game's UI and menus are an absolute nightmare to go through. Bungie has honestly learned nothing from what I can tell after playing their latest game, and the sinking feeling I get from all of this is that you just have to sit there and just like ask, like, really? You guys wanted to make this over Destiny 3. All that expertise, the systems built, the assets made, the world building, you decided to make a neon shooter escape from Roblox looking game instead of delving further into the massive potential of your science fiction world with Destiny that people want more of. Marathon could have just been a game mode in Destiny, and I think people would have been fine with that. It could have been a pillar of Destiny's like design philosophy going forward. Instead, it's just a game that you need to buy to just run around in while nothing happens until something does, I guess, and then it's either over or you keep playing while you look for metal pieces and ammo. We need to stop pushing for games like this, man. I'm begging the industry to stop thinking that these sorts of games are going to work. We need more Resident Evils, not whatever the hell this is. And again, a shout out to the sponsor of this video, Snacksy. Remember to check the pinned comment or description so you can start earning while you're playing and get up to $10 off, and thanks to Snacksy again. While Marathon might find an audience, I wonder how long until people walk away for good. Does it have a chance? Did you play the beta? What did you think? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to. I'll see you guys in the next one, but for me, man, what a waste of resources, time, and potential. They actually did this over Destiny 3, man. This is bleak.
We are now at war with Iran. If that devolves into World War III depends on what their regime does next. But all week we knew the US was staging a large preemptive attack, and late last night locally, or early morning over there, missiles were launched as Operation Epic Fury began, as the supreme leader of Iran's home and several locations were destroyed, leaving his compounds absolutely decimated in seconds, as we also took out their missile launchers, destroying their Ministry of Intelligence's building, as missiles and drones struck all across their entire country. Now obviously these strikes caused distress on the ground, but some Iranians saw this as a positive, even taken to the streets to celebrate. Believing US intervention was their only path to freedom from their regime. Even specifically thanking Trump, as the US president made this moment about them.
To the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered, don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
Now, even though Iranian celebrations continued in Australia, we likely won't see much from Iran, as again, their internet has been cut. As shortly after, Twitter has had to ban a massive amount of bots coming directly from Iran, as their media is stating we struck a school, ending several students. America's ABC News is echoing this statement heard from their semi-official news outlet, citing the local governor, and the UK's Telegraph is stating our allies carried out the attack, which has been met with some skepticism, as the fog of war is already getting thick from the severance of the local internet, potential for false flags from either side, and even advancements in AI footage. It's hard to believe anything preliminary, as Iran's local news reported on their counterattack, Operation True Promise 4. But apparently they're putting out footage from Grand Theft Auto 5 as to how they'll fight back. It seems stupid, but back in Ukraine, people were passing off video game recordings as war footage, and it actually worked. But it doesn't mean they don't have fighting capabilities, as allegedly this is them sending out hypersonic missiles. But also, the US base in Bahrain was hit from what appears to be one of those Dorito drones. Now, downplaying a drone attack on US soldiers as a spicy Dorito is admittedly inappropriate, but sometimes laughing is the only way to stop from crying when nuclear winter is coming, as Tel Aviv is also being heavily attacked.
This is breaking news. Air raid sirens are going off,
with their missile defenses going into overdrive. But now Saudi Arabia is reporting massive amounts of missiles, now wishing to join in on our war efforts.
That the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia says they will join the U.S. in the operation against the Islamic Republic of Iran. They said that this comes in the wake of Iran attacking the U.S. base in Saudi Arabia. I just spoke to a senior U.S. official who said the Iranians made a big mistake by firing on Arab coalition partners.
As Iran is also attacking the port in Bahrain, Jordan was also hit, as a missile was intercepted over Qatar, falling on its citizens. Now, we currently can't confirm basically anything, as most importantly, is Iran meeting to strike military or civilian targets, or do they even care? As apparently they hit the civilian airport in Kuwait.
Adom.
With Dubai suspending their flights, into the evening, Iran is carrying out a second wave of strikes. where Dubai was also hit with a Dorito drone themselves, where this definitely looks like a civilian area, and again, Bahrain was attacked at what was reportedly a residential building. As Iran seems to be attacking everybody in the Middle East, which either pulls everybody into a prolonged hot conflict or legitimizes the need to immediately end their regime, unleashing unlimited amounts of force. But selfishly, I'm most concerned with what this means for us locally, where we believe they can't reach us from their country directly, but after 4 years of Biden's wide-open borders, pouring in massive amounts of unknown military-aged males, is there a possibility that in their desperation, a counterattack occurs in our country, maybe in one of those cities that gives them sanctuary? And in NYC, they're already deploying counter-terror units. But what are their local leftists doing? Apparently preparing massive protests the very next day in Times Square against American interests. And even all the way across the country in Seattle, they too represent the Iranian regime, which protesting on their behalf is insane, as just over a month ago, that same Iranian regime that Americans are actually defending allegedly ended over 30,000 peaceful protesters in their country. As this is going to be Venezuela all over again. American leftists can't comprehend anything other than Orange Man bad. Even if that country sees American intervention as emancipation, they can't help but throw toddler-style temper tantrums. And it's one thing if low-information idiots are getting paid to block the streets in their favorite liberal city, but even Democrats in Congress are crying over Trump attacking a country during her religion's holiday. Now obviously she was going to block all replies to her remarks, as the community notes called out her claims, but not only being inaccurate, but the country being nowhere near religious as she believes, with Cam Higbee referencing how much that country attacks during her holiday. Again proving there's no virtues or consistency with the left. It's all just whatever Trump is doing is bad, even if it's ending suffering. They still have to be staunchly against it, even if it means defending a country from danger that she is currently living in and should be representing. But the big question is, why are we doing this?
And those thousands of missiles pose a real danger. And I know that Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and General Kane are explaining the risk to the president, as they should. It's a lot easier to shoot the archer before he gets off his arrow than trying to knock the arrow out of the sky.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message.
And I, like you, don't really believe official narratives, regardless of whatever side it's coming from. But there is a growing theory that this is just about taking oil from China, as they buy 90% of Iran's exports. And just over a month ago, we took Venezuela, their other primary provider of oil, to which Trump has since put in our pockets.
As you know, we had an attack on Venezuela a couple of months ago, and it was a very successful attack. And we took over the oil, and we're working very closely with the Venezuelan representatives and the president of the country. And that oil is being sent to Texas, and a lot of it's coming right here to Corpus Christi.
Republicans claiming they're stopping our enemies from getting advanced weaponry when it's really about oil sounds like a lazy reboot from a movie we've already seen when we were kids, but hopefully it doesn't end anywhere near the same way. As we've already announced that the attacks will continue through the weekend, Iran has claimed their leader has survived the attack, but abruptly cancelled his public appearances. So we'll just have to see if this spirals out of control, or just wraps up over the weekend. But if you appreciate my concise, lighthearted commentary on the tragic status that is today's reality, hopefully I've earned your subscription, and you can continue to get updates on the situation.
I may not be tall, but I have played every Resident Evil game. Well, mostly. I've played pretty much every unique Resident Evil game. I played them all back to back over the course of like a month and a half for the sake of tier listing every Resident Evil game in the franchise, getting prepared for Resident Evil Requiem, which I just now finished. So naturally, the question on everyone's mind, Charles, how big can you smile? And now with that question answered, next, you're probably wondering, was the game good? Yes. Yes, it was. And after having played through nearly every Resident Evil game ever made, I feel like I can confidently say I know ball. I feel like I know Resident Evil like Elon Musk knows ketamine. So when I say what I'm about to say here, just know, this means something, man. I think Resident Evil Requiem is a top 5 Resident Evil game. I'm saying it. I'm putting it right there. I'm putting it out there in the open. You can't take it back. Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It is an incredible game, actually. And what I find extremely impressive is that this franchise has been around for nearly 3 decades, and yet they are still able to make new games in this franchise that feel fresh and fun. Like, you would expect a franchise that has this many games, like 30-something unique games and like 100-something like ports and fucking Zeebo shit and whatever else they have for Resident Evil, like Java games and all that, you would expect by now it to be beyond milked dry. Just no meat left on the bones, them titties, them melons, vanquished, devoid of substance. Yet somehow with Resident Evil, they are still producing very high quality games. They had a very bumpy road there for a little while, like a rough patch around Resident Evil 6. Good heavens, trust me, I know, they really stunk it up there for a while. But once RE7 rolled around, that was literally the fucking cure to the T-virus that was the Resident Evil 6 fucking plague that basically ruined the franchise there for a little while. 7 pioneered a new breath of life into this franchise, which was the first-person horror intense stakes. And then they've built upon it. And Resident Evil Requiem marries that gameplay with the iconic, timeless classic gameplay of the action-oriented Resident Evil 4 formula. It takes both of these elements, builds upon them, and makes something very special here with Requiem. So you play as 2 characters, Grace Ashcroft, who actually is the daughter of a character from Resident Evil Outbreak, which is super hyped, because Outbreak, I think, was a very innovative title for its time that is still very fun to play, even though it's quite janky. And her gameplay is Resident Evil 7 style. It's very horror focused, it's slower paced, you're not juiced to the gills with ammo, you have to use stealth, you have to struggle, it's very intense. Then you also play as Leon in Requiem, and it's just like in RE4 where it is cheesy, over-the-top action, and these two flow back and forth. And for some people it won't like flow seamlessly because you do go from like survival horror over here to action horror over here, like right back to back, because you flip-flop between the two of them. So for some people that might be jarring and not super smooth and feel like tonal whiplash, but for me, I loved it. Because I love Resident Evil 7 and I love Resident Evil 4. 7 is actually my second favorite Resident Evil game. Resident Evil 4 OG is my third favorite game. My first favorite is OG Resident Evil 3. There's not a whole lot of OG Resident Evil 3 DNA in here, outside of a little something at the end of the game. I won't spoil it. But anyway, I really think the game is great. I think the story is super strong too. I've seen some people criticize the writing, and I do get it in certain instances. You could say like, writing got a little wacky here and there, but I actually think it's really strong. And it's one of those things that didn't just rely on nostalgia baiting, like, here comes a beloved character from the franchise riding in on a fucking unicorn to save the day out of nowhere. And then, do you remember this? Well, good news, it's back. And do you remember that? Yeah, it's back too. But what about this? Do you remember this from old Resident Evil? Also back. And just like shoehorning all these cameos in there for the sake of fan service. It doesn't do that. It stands on its own 2 legs. And yes, there are some returning characters and some things from previous Resident Evil games in here, but they flow really well into the story that they create. The story revolves around Grace. She is investigating a very... I'm actually avoiding spoilers for this review, which is something I don't do often, but I really, really enjoyed Requiem, and I want to show it some respect here without just spoiling things, and also anyone that's watching this that wants to know my thoughts on it without like having everything ruined for them. This is me avoiding spoilers. It follows Grace after an investigation, gets all cattywampus, and she runs into a real oddball named Victor Gideon. Victor Gideon kidnaps her, Leon gets brought into the fold, and he finds himself needing to make a journey all the way back to Raccoon City, where it all began for Leon Kennedy. And also, why are they so interested in Grace? Why did she get kidnapped? What the fuck is going on? That's the broad strokes of it. Now, Grace is a new character, and she's actually a really good character, I'm happy to say. Also, huge shout out to her voice actress. The voice actress that played Grace did an unbelievable job. The way she was able to convey terror and panic in her performance for this character was extremely realistic, and it really helped elevate things. So even though I will admit there were times where the writing got a little off the mark and felt a bit off, her performance was still able to sell it to the point where it wasn't like jarring and make you go, ooh, yuck, that was trash. It's just more like, that felt a little weird, but, the performance helped salvage some of those moments. And that's across the board. Pretty much everyone gives a really good performance in this game, and I think that really helps in that regard. But like I said, I do think the writing is solid. I think they do a good job with Grace. I think she is a well-written character. I think some people might be annoyed by her because she has, like, anxiety, so maybe some people might find her to be, like, maybe a little too timid or, not confident enough for a Resident Evil game where you follow characters like fucking Leon Kennedy, who's a superhuman, hanging hog, blowing zombies' heads off, fucking ripping their nipples off and beating them to death with them. Like, she is very different as a protagonist compared to them, but she's not like the full protagonist because, like I said, you split evenly with Leon. It is like a very even split with Grace gameplay and Leon gameplay. It's very nice. You feel like you get a ton of both. But anyway, what I'm saying is I think Grace is a good character. They do a good job with her. Now let's talk about the gameplay. Pretty much exactly what you're expecting if you've played Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake. You get that kind of gameplay. You get all of that in one package here. So when you're playing Grace, you're going to be using stealth. You're going to be needing to be more mindful of what encounters you take, going loud, using your ammo, versus which ones you use a little stealth kill with, which aren't free, by the way. You can't just stealth kill things for free as Grace. You have to make something, which is a little vial that you stab into them and they blow up like you just planted dynamite in their body. So those cost resources. And the way that Grace crafts, I thought was very creative. You get a blood collector, you collect blood from killed enemies, or even sometimes like blood from enemies that had already previously been killed, or even buckets of blood in the world, and you will fill up that blood, holder, that apparatus, and then you will combine that with, an herb if you want to make a med injector for heals, or you'll combine it with, some scrap if you want to make ammo for your handgun, or if you want to make that, one-time use insta-kill stealth jab. So her gameplay is very similar to Resident Evil 7's gameplay, but you have even less tools at your disposal to fight the zombies with. You only have two guns. You have a pistol, and then you have Requiem, the big iron, the fucking big tuna. Outside of that, that's it. That's all you have to use to beat the enemies around you, which is why you need to be a little smarter about it and also be slower about it. Now, Leon's gameplay is exactly what you're expecting it to be if you've played Resident Evil 4. It's bombastic, it's over the top, it's high octane, you're killing hundreds of zombies, and there's a really cool change they made to how you upgrade your weapons with Leon. So this time around, they reward you for being aggressive. So you get a tracker that when you kill a zombie gives you credits on your tracker that you then spend to get ammo or upgrades for your weapons, that kind of thing. So it incentivizes you to fucking annihilate everything that's around you. Leave no survivors. So, which is a really fun thing to do. It gives you plenty of resources to do it as well. It gives you a lot of fun guns to play with, even though I do think the guns are a little underwhelming. Like, they don't have the same kind of character that I feel they used to have. Like, I remember playing through Resident Evil 4 OG, you'd have chat be like, I'm fucking team Red 9. No, Red 9's trash. And you'd actually have like a debate about what guns are the most fun to use. Here, every gun feels just very generic, very samey. Like they don't have like a unique identity to them or anything this time around. I don't think there's going to be like really passionate, fucking W870 shotgun fans or something, right? I could be wrong, but for me, it felt like the guns were just very standard. I guess I would have liked to see a little bit more there. But it's not the biggest deal in the world because they are still fun to use and you get plenty of opportunities to use them and kill zombies. His gameplay, I think, is great, and I really like that new system they did with tracking kills and rewarding you for killing things. Like previously in Resident Evil games, the optimal strategy usually, well, not usually, sometimes would boil down to kneecapping, kicking, and then running by to conserve ammo. Here, it's like, you can do that, you can be a pussy if you want, or you can kill all these zombies and get yourself a lot of money and basically max out your weapons really easily.